Thank you and see you again, soon, inshallah. Goodbye. Right, take care.
Okay, drive safe.
Thank you.
How do you say in Arabic, drive safe?
Drive safe. We usually use
توصل بالسلامة.
توصل بالسلامة يعني stay safe توصل بالسلامة. أما قد بحذر. Maybe.
Because in Ukrainian we also don't have this phrase. You can't say it.
Yes.
And in Spanish, do you have a word for this?
Conduce con cuidado.
Mm-hmm.
O sí, algo así. En general sería cuídate.
Well, it is 12 universal time right now. On behalf of ASREN organization, please allow me to welcome all of you for this workshop. It's about LIBSENSE next step. This workshop will be followed with another workshop from ORCID about how ORCID can be a reliable open research infrastructure enabler. Today, in this workshop, for LIBSENSE workshop, we will have two honorable speakers. We have Mr. Lautaro Matas. He is from La Francia. He is executive and technical secretary at La Francia. He will talk about how La Francia initiative is considered a gateway to open access in Latin America. How can LIBSENSE benefit from this experience? And we will also have Dr. Katie Wilson. She is a research fellow at the Curtin University, Australia. She will be also talking about Cookie Initiative as a universal open knowledge hub. Just to brief you about the LIBSENSE right now, I will highlight the LIBSENSE initiative. And let me share my screen. I'll have just a few slides. Can you see my screen, my PowerPoint slides, please?
Yes.
Yeah. To talk about LIBSENSE in brief, as you know, LIBSENSE initiative was launched in 2016. Its aim was to bring the research and education networks, RENs, and academic libraries communities together to start a kind of collaboration that's to build sustainable and relevant approaches for open science and open access in particular. This initiative is led by ASREN, the West and Central Africa Research and Education Network. It's a regional of RENs in West and Central Africa. The initiative is also with collaboration with the sister regional networks, ASREN and OpenToNet as well. Of course, there is tremendous efforts and contribution from other participating partners. Part of that, civil and national regional educational networks, libraries, library association, universities, research communities, Quark, Confederation of Open Access Repositories is always, and besides IEFL, University of Sheffield has also contribution, National Institution of Informatics Japan, and Giant and OpenAir, which is the portal or for open access in Europe. Why libraries? As you know, academic libraries already became involved in the new aspects of research and education environment. This is to promote open access, also to set up publishing service, developing research and data management policies, running repositories. And just to highlight the growth of open access, these figures are from Shimago. It's a journal list, which are categorized as the top ranked journals. As you see, in 1999, there was about 6% of the overall the list only open access. It's increased to 10% in 2009, and in 2019, almost 20% of the percentage of the top ranked journals worldwide are open access right now. Even publisher big names like Elsevier, Springer, Taylor and Francis, and others are adopting open access as well. To talk brief about outcomes of the LIBSENSE initiative so far, terms of preferences for NREN library collaboration has been set. Metadata guidelines for repositories have been prepared. There are plans for regional repository hosting service and also national institution policy templates as well. For ASREN contribution as a partner of this initiative, for the LIBSENSE initiative, LIBSENSE third workshop conducted in Tunisia last year and there were a set of priorities for the Arabic region, the ASREN region in particular, and it could be also for the LIBSENSE other regions as well. The need for federated discovery system has been raised, increasing the value of Arabic content, shared content hosting platform, advocacy, training, and communities of practice as well. Also, LIBSENSE virtual workshop conducted last October, and there was a focus on open access and open science in the Arabic region. Several speakers from different Arabic countries highlighted these aspects. LIBSENSE started technical meetings and discussions with La Francia, and there is a potential for collaboration with La Francia to adopt their model, and actually harvesting test of sample repositories in the Arabic region using the La Francia platform took place, and results sound to be promising. And today, Mr. Lautaro will highlight this topic. Also, LIBSENSE working groups focus on the importance of person-centered identifiers, and ASREN is also discussing collaboration with ORCID, and the successive workshop. After this workshop, we will highlight this. What will be the next steps? Discussions, we need to build on discussions with La Francia and the results, and hopefully we'll be adopting the La Francia model. Discussions with ORCID also, we need to build on the discussions with them, and how regional research and educational networks can serve in the sake of open access and open science. The outcome of LIBSENSE working groups, either on infrastructure, doing open access journals, repositories, discovery service, we need to build on these outcomes. Also, we need to build an outcome of the LIBSENSE capacity buildings, priorities and for training and capacity buildings in the area of open repositories, open access publishing, research and data management, open learning and open educational resources, since there is big demand since the start of the pandemic on the learning resources in particular. Thank you so much, and please allow me to introduce Mr. Lautaro Matas. He's, as mentioned, he's the executive and technical secretary at the La Francia, and he will provide us with the details. Please.
Thank you very much, Raid. I am sharing the screen now. Are you seeing my main screen?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Well, thank you very much for the opportunity to present in this workshop. As Raid said, we started the discussions, and today I want to present some points around La Referencia, the history, and how we get it here. So the main mission of La Referencia is to give visibility to the public-funded scientific production in Latin America. We were doing this by cooperation and articulation of a federated network of institutional open access repository. And all the work is based on regional agreements. We are not also a technical network, but especially a political network. Let me introduce this. These are now the countries. In fact, we are now adding to Panama also. These are the countries that today are part of La Referencia, and you will see that Spain is participating in La Referencia as a non-Latin American external associate country. This is our network today, and also you will see that Red Clara, that is our regional network. It's not only an associate of La Referencia, but it's also our legal entity. They provide us not only infrastructure, but also the possibility of act as legal entity for us. Is like an umbrella institution for us. And this is important because in the context of the collaboration with Africa, Red Clara have a strong collaboration with the African networks, and this map of the links shows that now it's possible to connect directly from Latin America to Africa. I will talk about a little bit about the history of La Referencia. La Referencia born as a Red Clara leaded project funded by the International Development Bank like 10 years ago. It was a 3 years project, and the main goal of the project was to create the consensus strategy. The countries discussed a lot about how to create a model, a possible model to build this kind of network. At that time, several models were discussed, but finally they adopted the model that I will be talking in a moment. So at the end of the project, the countries signed an agreement of cooperation, and the principle of that agreement were the access to the full text and to build value-added services around the repositories. So the strategy is based on national nodes, country nodes, and the beneficiaries of the public fund publish their results in accordance to the principles of the agreement. So began the project ended, and then the initiative worked in the sustainability of the by country membership. Basically, the countries pay an annual membership fee, and that funds and sustain our operational costs, and then we consolidated the governance, because each country has a seat and a vote in a council, which is our governance way. So, and we also have technical groups. So at that time we passed from a pilot service platform, because initially we only harvested 3 countries, and we moved it to harvest the entire network. So the collection grew from thousands to millions of records. So and at that time we started to work a lot in international alignment, and in that process CORE was crucial, because we started to develop better guidelines to align with international guidelines, and to build better guidelines for our region. Also, we started to participate in open area projects. So in the next part, that is these past years, we grow about in institutionalization, because we formed and president's charge for La Referencia, which is a political representative for all the countries, and the president is elected by the council. So Bianca Amaro is now our president. She's the council representative from Brazil, and she was reelected for 2 more years. So now Bianca Amaro is in that part. So we started to expand our actions not only to open access repository but on open science in general. We are not focused not only in repositories but also in data guidelines and all the action that we need to advance in with the research data. So in that context, we are developing more technology. We are participating in the evolution of the global metadata guidelines because all the guidelines are dynamic, and we are actively participating in that process. And we have a lot of more international cooperation. We keep our cooperation with CORE, with OpenAir. We're also have development efforts shared with ERCAP and the University of Minho in Portugal. We have most of memory of understanding with LIBSENSE, with Zenodo, and now we are started to work with RDA also. So just to comment a little bit about what were the challenge in the process that I took it. One of the biggest challenges was to build how to build a common infrastructure, a common software. We decided to go for develop our own software. That process was not easy, but allows us to expand, dynamically expand the software and take the control of some parts. We develop and we transfer that software to the countries. So every node runs the very same software. So when we need to implement a new policy, we just need to update the software and deploy the update to other countries, and then we move as a network. The basis of the basement of our network is the national nodes. So we support a lot to create strong national nodes, and we transfer a lot of knowledge to the technical human resources of the node, because that is very important to have good counterparts at the country level. So in a way, we are acting as a collective memory against the political changes, because as you know, in our countries, sometimes the policies change with the governments. So sometimes you just lost the people that you used to talk. They changed all the people. So we start over again and transfer again the knowledge. So in that way, we are like a collective memory to preserve the knowledge between the political changes. So other of the achievements was to increase the metadata quality. We see a lot of improvements in the quality since La Referencia is active. That process started at the regional node, but we then passed it to the national node, and we are now seeing the impact at the repository level. So regarding the software, we are now the next challenge, I think, is consolidate this collaborative software network, because at the very beginning we were the only developers for the software. Now we are moving to a more collaborative and more open community of developers. So that's for us, our next goal is to expand in some way the community, the development community. One reality in our region is the enormous asymmetry and inequality. So that requires setting priorities, and work at national but also regional level, considering the difference, because Latin America is very is integrated with very different huge countries as Brazil, small countries, different, some different language, but very deep, sometimes different cultures. So considering and respecting that difference is the base to build a good regional network. So we focus in these three columns. We push for agreements on public goods inside the reference countries and with other regions, also with other initiatives like open air, as I said. We work a lot of or try to keep updated in guidelines. Their core and open air are great partners and players, because they align, especially core, they try to align all the guidelines related contents globally. So for us, it's very important to collaborate and to have that kind of support. At technology level, as I said, we work in this platform that allow us to make harvesting aggregation, to validate the guidelines, to see if the metadata has the quality required for the guidelines, by the guidelines, sorry. And we are doing also metadata enrichment. We are starting to, or not also to validate. From the beginning, we started to transform the metadata in order to make that metadata that not fulfills the requirements of the guidelines, transform it or fix the metadata in order to make it compatible. So we are now moving also to enrich the metadata, and we try to develop regional pilots on these different things. We are starting to work a lot with information providing from other sources like national CVs, like CRIS systems, and other actors in the national research ecosystem, in order to enrich the metadata and deliver services to other actors in the ecosystem also. So regarding the La Referencia platform, it was developed to be scalable, because we have, as I said, small countries with small resources, and also big countries with enormous requirements in terms of space and processing. So the platform is scalable and runs in low-end servers, but also across multiple servers in distributed mode. We have this GPL license, and our main test was Brazil, because they have the 70% of the production of Latin America. So if the software runs well in Brazil, they can support almost any case in the rest of the network, and I think in the world also. So the platform adapts to different metadata schemas, to the different guidelines also. You can configure and define your own guidelines and test and validate the different repositories with custom guidelines if you want. So now are working in the distributed statistics, also a platform and service for Latin America. And we continue the efforts to align and interact with open air services. So this resumes a little bit about the model that we implemented. We have in the top, you will see the institutional repositories for different countries, and each country has an aggregator node that harvest their own repositories. They decide which repositories they will harvest, and they decide the contents, the policies, the internal policies, and they share that content using the OAI PMH protocol to the regional node, the reference node. And we do the same with other initiatives. So then you can see several levels of aggregation. We are actually an aggregator of aggregators, because the national aggregators have the ability, but also the control of the content that they expose. So this model respects, in a way, the national decisions around the content and the national policies. And we only aggregate what each node, the metadata that each country exposes. So this distributed model is not only technical, but also political, because each node has a representative, and the decisions are made as a network also. So I now want to show one example of the impact of the visibility from the repository level to the regional and the global level. I will take an example from a repository of Argentina, which is a national, is an institutional repository of the National Council of Science and Technology. And I would take a single article, deposited and published in that repository, in institutional repository. Then the repository is harvested by the national node of Argentina. We provide not also the aggregator software, but also the software to build a national portal. So they build the national portal, they harvest the information, and they present and share that information with the search engine, and you can find the very same article in the national level. I must say they harvest only the metadata, the PDF or the PDF of the article remains in the repository. It's not harvested. So we, La Referencia, harvest at regional level, harvest all the national nodes. So now you can find this very same article at regional level. And now the visibility is regional. If all the people that go for contents, to search contents in our regional portal, with more 2 million records, finds the same article at the regional level. And then we export the information, which is harvested by OpenAir. So OpenAir, that is the European project, but at this point it's a global project, because they harvest more than 100 million publications. They run the duplication process and enrichment, and they do a lot of and deliver a lot of service around the content. So La Referencia is a content provider. So the information that they harvested from La Referencia, it is also present at the OpenAir, and it is duplicated, and La Referencia is one of the sources of the article. So if you click in one of these links, you will be redirected to the repository. And here is for me the important part. As you see, you will the original article is visible at national level, at regional level, and at global level. But when you click in some of that levels, you go directly to the original repository. So the visibility of the repository of the institution increases. The access of the final access to the file, to the PDF, to the digital object goes to the repository. And this is that result is more visibility to the institution, to the researchers of the institution, and the visibility also for the regional research, these research topics. Because many times, at least in Latin America, we find that some research topics that are important for our region, they are not important for the main current of the knowledge. So we also are in this way, we also bring visibility to local problems, to local issues that sometimes are not part of the main current of the knowledge. So we know that it generates more citation and more collaboration between regions. So this visibility is vital for us. So just two more slides to end. So for us, it's very important international cooperation. As I said, all our reference countries are automatically part and core as core. There are core members that is included in our model. We were partner of open air projects. The projects are going to end, but we want to keep collaborating with the open air project in some way. We have this most with Zenodo, with LIBSENSE, and we are working in agreement with RDA, because the next step here is the data research, the research data. So we are already harvesting research data and metadata, but we found that we need to increase the collaboration resources around transferring knowledge to the researchers and to the research community in order to manage data. So for us, that's a very important step. As Ray said, we started the conversations and the discussion with African networks and with the Arabic. We are testing the platform in Arabic content. This is the very last result. Just yesterday we harvested a repository. We validated the metadata. We ran transformations in order to make it compatible with OpenR3, and we indexed that content, Arabic content, in our test portal. I must say that the software that we are using for the portal is an open source software, different from ours, but is open source and is compatible with Arabic contents and other non-Latin contents also. So we found is a very preliminary proof of concept, but it's very promising. We are very excited about this because we found that it's possible to harvest and process Arabic content through our pipeline and publish and build national and regional nodes using this technology. So we think that is a very good starting point. My time is out, so thank you very much, and I am happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much, Lautaro. We will have 10 minutes for Q&A, but now it's Katie Wilson time. If you can start, Katie, please.
Excuse me, just share my screen.
Didn't show up yet.
Okay.
Now it started. Yes.
Now, can you see? Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Good. Thank you. And thank you so much for the invitation, the opportunity to speak and share some knowledge about our project. It's the Curtin Open Knowledge Initiative. And yes, we're based at Curtin University in Western Australia. So a little bit of background first about the project. It started as a Curtin University strategic research project that really was developed out of some frustration with the bibliometric measures that are used by the major world university rankings, the sources for the publication and the citation data, for example, which are, somewhat limited focus on the global north and some limitations in disciplines and journals that are included in their coverage. So we've been focusing on gathering together data relating to open access or all research output actually, and analyzing it to understand the extent of open access. But also we're gathering and analyzing information on collaboration at institutional levels in research, funding and diversity in knowledge production. So we've aggregated a number of sources and brought together so far information data points from around about over 18,000 institutions around the world. And in this sense, we're building a global open knowledge hub. So this is the range of the countries, institutions. Each dot represents an institution and countries around the world. So we have nearly over 18,000 institutions, 192 countries, nearly 19,000 funders, publishers, and at the moment, mostly focused on journal publications. 196,000, nearly 197,000 journals, probably growing all the time, these figures. And the size of the dots, the circles there represent the numbers of publications from the different sources. So we just a little bit about our process, the data process. We start with, we take affiliation data from the GRID ID database, institutional affiliation identifiers, and we match those to affiliation data from publications from primarily Microsoft Academic, but also we're also using data from the Web of Science and Scopus. And we pull the DOIs unique DOIs from the publications and match those with the GRID ID. We pair those, and then we run the DOIs against the cross-ref DOIs against Unpaywall to determine the open access status of the publications. And this produces a list of institutions with percentages of open access. So we have the analysis of total open access, gold open access, gold only in the directory or DOAJ, that directory of open access journals. We can also identify hybrid publications, open publications and hybrid journals, bronze, green in repositories, items that are green only, that is, they only appear in a repository. And we can also look at green in a home, what we call home repository, so the institutional repository. And we also have items that are not open access. So we're gathering data from these sources on the right, Microsoft Academic Web of Science, Scopus, Crossref, Unpaywall, also FundRef for funding information, and we're gathering data from ORCID. We've just recently added ORCID data, publication and affiliation data. So what we're doing is trying to extend universities' knowledge of their own research performance to go beyond the limitations in some of the major public services publication databases. So we can aggregate the data, and because we're taking a global approach, we've been able to identify growth and leaders in open research output. So the next slide, the next few slides show the growth and the variation in open access output, focusing here on gold on the vertical axis and green on the horizontal axis. So the percentages, each dot here represents an institution, and the size of the dot reflects the number of items from the institution. And we have the we have the regions of, we've grouped the regions into Asia, Europe, North America, Latin America, Africa, and Oceania. And so 2011, we can see there's strong gold growth here from Latin America, Latin America and Asia, the strongest here in 2011 performing. The blue is North America, fairly more slightly in the green direction, but nowhere near as high. Green is Europe, and pink is Africa. So some growth from Africa. If we move the next slide. Okay, just 1 minute. Here we go. This travels through the next decade until we reach 2019, and we can see quite a shift there. So not only is there a growth in total output, but we see some leading institutions from Asia, still Asia and Latin America in gold, but also in Africa in the green region. So quite strong African output in green OA. So we have all this data, excuse me, and we want to be able to share this data with institutions, with organizations, with executives, researchers, librarians, people who are interested in understanding the research output of their institutions. So we've begun developing visual data dashboards, and these we can provide information at institutional level, at country level, and at funder level. We can identify material publications that are open versus not open over the last 20 years. We can also map the collaboration at an international level between institutions. And we can identify funding sources and things like the citation advantage between open and non-open publications. We've started building the dashboards with the Google Data Studio, and we're now moving to a new platform called Kibana with using Elasticsearch, and that's just we just have developed our first dashboard using Kibana. So we currently have 2 publicly available dashboards that are free to access. One that shows country data, publications by open access output and open versus not open, and some citation analysis. And we also have funder dashboards where we've taken funding data acknowledgements in publications and analyzed those, pulled out those funders, and using the FundRef data, we've been able to identify funders and also the countries in which the funders come from. So just these are publicly available, but just I thought I'd share with you a couple of the couple of country profiles. So, for example, for the public publication, open access growth and type, here we have Jordan showing for since 2000 the growth in open access, quite a strong growth, and also strong in green, but just in the last couple of years, gold overtaking green. And this, on the right, the graph on the right, the bar graph shows the breakdown between open in the orange and not open. And the donut circles down the bottom show the extent of gold, green, hybrid, and bronze, as well as total open access for that over that period. Excuse me. For the acknowledged funders in this dashboard, we've brought together information about. We've aggregated these into countries, so we can see, interestingly, where major funding resources are coming from for the institutions that we've analysed. So even a small, we have here the Commonwealth of Australia, so a small percentage from Australia, but of course the largest percentage from Jordan, but also United States, Canada, China, and a large percentage of others, so that are lumped together there. On the right, we've broken for the last 5 years, we show where the largest sources of funding are coming from, which countries. Another example is Iraq, also a similar growth in open access, but larger, more in the gold publication and the green in the last couple of years, and the green has dropped off quite substantially according to our figures. And the output in terms of open and non-open has grown quite substantially into 2019. And similarly, for the acknowledged funders, that is the funders that are acknowledged in publications, we can see where the sources of research funding data are coming from a range of countries on the left-hand side, and the 5 major countries contributing funding on the right-hand side. So these are just samples of some of the databases, some of the dashboards that we're developing. We're also aware that even though we aggregate a number of sources into our database, our data sets, there is more to add, and we're seeking to expand into other geographies to provide greater coverage of sources, and also in disciplines and output types. For example, the focus at the moment is primarily on journals, but we're also interested in books, and we're aware that by focus on journals, we may be missing some of the humanities and social sciences, where there's often more publication in book format. So those are areas that we're expanding. We also want to integrate more research publication output from countries that are less represented in the world. And so we're very interested in collaborating and also sharing data with producers of research output and organizations such as ASREN and LIBSENSE and other La Referencia even. Having heard about La Referencia, which was very, very interesting. So Thank you for this time. If you wish to find out more about the Koki project, our website is here. Please contact me if you need further information. This is a link to a publication, a recent publication where we looked at the impact of policies on open access output. And I'm very happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Katie, for your presentation. And we have about 8 minutes. It can be used for Q&A before we join the ORCID workshop. So please feel free to ask any question.
Hi, Katie, thanks for your presentation. I just wanted to make more of a comment than a question, because we often see I don't know if everybody here knows the difference between green and gold and bronze, but for those who don't, like, green open access is when you deposit your article into a repository, and gold open access is when you publish directly in an open access journal. So the green, we often see the green lines go down, for the last year, because many publishers have embargoes on deposit of green articles. So I don't think when we see those statistics, I don't think it means that people are more publishing in gold and less in green. It just reflects that authors can't deposit their articles that are published in 2020 into a repository. They have to wait, often for 12 months.
Yes, that's right. Thanks for pointing that out. We're aware of that, but it is interesting to see some of those shifts, and particularly over the last 10 years. Yeah.
There are no questions. I would like to thank Lautaro again for his effort in the piloting and testing. And I could see the beta website testing environment. And I guess this is the QSpace Qatar repository, Qatar University repository. You have something to add about this test in particular?
No, we started with the test with other repositories, and at this point, we found that if the repository has the content in Arabic properly coded, we are not able to harvest, validate, transform or enrich the metadata, and index in this kind of portals. And the good news is that the software that we are using to make the portals, it's already compatible with the Arabic alignment. We need to look and make more tests, of course, where we find that this is a very good starting point.
One of the English primary goals is to advance their vision by using their skills, talent, competence, and innovation, and inspiring people to improve their performance. The organization is also focusing on expanding its business. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, no, don't, Doctor. Yes, okay. Okay, I didn't talk about the vision. Vision, it's the ability to think about or plan the future with imagination or wisdom. Customer satisfaction by meeting various needs, innovation, as well as business excellence. The main vision is to enhance customers' life in the marketplace.
I don't think it's related to our workshop, so maybe we can mute
Oh.
this user.
Oh. Thanks, Arena. I wanted to ask Lautaro, from your model where you bring in different repositories from different countries, and you mentioned that they may be using different metadata, but you bring them all together. Do you have a common metadata schema at the top level?
Yes, we follow the guidelines of OpenR. So for the version 3 was Dublin core, and now we are moving to the next OpenR schema, which is the version 4, which is based in DataSite, in the DataSite schema. But our software can harvest in virtually any schema, and you can define transformation to translate from one given schema to the schema that you choose to be the main one. So the software covers that part and solves that part in a transparent way. So we can harvest from different sources with different metadata. Even we have non-standard schemas in Brazil, very local, and that's because we developed that kind of functionality to solve that problems. And now they at national level have the very same schema.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just had another comment going back to the color schemes that we have adopted over the years related to open access. I wonder, Katie, if you would consider, as opposed to saying green, gold, identifying that on your dashboard, would you consider changing it to OA repositories, OA journals, or something like that? Just because, again, I think not as open access becomes more adopted, a lot of people aren't familiar with those kind of color schemes that we use. I've been trying to stay away from the term green.
Yeah, they're quite contested also, the definitions. We chose one particular sort of set of definitions, but we are aware that that they don't really mean anything unless you know what they mean, kind of thing. So it's what we can, it partly comes to what we can fit on a small dashboard. But yes, we are thinking, we're thinking of other possibilities, because it's been quite confusing, what is the difference between gold, and we have gold and gold DOAJ. That means gold, anything that's listed in the directory of open access journals, that's a slightly smaller subset of the full gold, that is anything that's published for a fee. So yes, it's something that we're grappling with, but in the meantime, that's kind of a shorthand.
I mean, because I think what we envision in the future, and we're already starting to see now, is preprints and peer review on preprints and those things being distributed. So things aren't going to be, as we innovate, as we start to innovate around these ideas of decoupling publishing with content preservation and access, those colors kind of, in a way, inhibit or stop us from being able to innovate, because they put us into a box that we don't really want to be in. So yeah,
yes. They're kind of going out of.
Excuse me, thank you, Kathleen and Kate, for your contribution. But actually, it's time for the next workshop. Excuse me.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
you very much. Please allow me to introduce Mr. Nabil Qasibi. he is a lead engagement lead at ORCID and for the Middle East and Africa regions. So he will talk about ORCID and how it could be a reliable open research infrastructure enabler. So stage is yours, Mr. Nabil, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Raed. And yeah, this is really a continuation of this discussion, so I don't want to interrupt Katie and Kathleen. So this is in essence, and let's say the indicators and parameters that are used to accomplish these kind of things in my point of view. And this is the open research, let's say, infrastructure that that we are aiming to achieve. So I'm gonna share my desktop on here, and please let me know if when it's visible.
Yes, it is visible right now.
All right. So so my name is Nabil Aziz Ksibi. I'm engagement lead for Middle East and Africa. And yeah, as you can see from the starting, I hesitated to say Nabil Ksibi or Nabil Aziz Ksibi or just yeah, Aziz Ksibi. So just to say that there are very different means in writing my names, and this is why actually I'm here, and this is why ORCID is here. So as a follow-up on the conversation of Katie and Kathleen, there are some, let's say, identifiers and references to collect some kind of data related to open access repositories or open repositories, or even on the, let's say, gold line of things. So if I ask what's a PID or what's in a PID, what's in a persistent identifier, so per definition, a persistent identifier is a long-lasting reference to a document, web page, file, or any other object that needs to be referenced or needs to be found in the web or in the internet. Sorry, and as you can see here, there are plenty of them. There are these, let's say, organizational identifiers. There are some books identifiers, digital object identifiers. There's ORCID, which is personal identifier. And this kind of barcode, which is the ISBN. So yeah, a lot of them, and we'll see how are we classifying them and how when and where they are used, basically. So again, why PIDs? Why persistent identifiers? So the issue of citation standards in general. So I found this let's say citation or this quote from this study about on the let's say data loss prevention from this article. So you can find this analysis on this on this slide when I share my the presentation after. If you want to read the article, it's kind of an interesting one. So the studies have shown that within a few years of being cited, a significant percentage of web addresses go dead, which is very logical for me because, if this work or this web page or this reference that is published on the web via a publisher or even via a, I don't know, social media or even via a personal website, will perish in a couple of years if this web page or this source or this address is not visited. So first, from the indexing perspective on Google, and second, from, let's say, the usage of this this data or the usage of this information, and the connection, let's say, or linkage between this information and other sources and other platforms that are allowing this this source to be discoverable or to be there. I mean, when the users need it. So yeah, it's a very real fact. And how can we prevent this? The solution that let's say came out from the community, where some let's say researchers sat and said, how can we have these kind of digital identifiers for works, for objects, for organizations, for persons? And this is from where came LEI, which is the legal entity identifier, and which is a unique global identifier for legal entities participating especially in finance transactions. And this is where we have Ringgold, which is from the family of ISNI, and which is also a registration agency for ISNI. And the Ringgold database includes crosswalk, let's say, ISNI organizational identifier. So it's like Ringgold is fed from ISNI. So we will see in an example that when you search for an organizational identifier at Ringgold, you will see the equivalent ISNI for that same organization. We have also GRID, which is the Global Research Identifier Database, and which is releasing IDs and metadata under CC01 license. We have also ROR, which is the Research Organization Registry. This is practically the last one in the family, which is a community-led project developing open, sustainable, usable, and unique identifier for every research organization in the world. So this ROR is linked to grids. So strong chances if you are looking for your organizational identifier at GRID, you'll find it as well in ROR. But also ROR are now curating identifiers, and you can create your ROR identifier from scratch directly from ROR. Then why PIDs for organizations? So if I throw here Jamiat al-Qarawin, University of Qarawin in Google in Arabic, the first thing that I notice is the difference between this result and this result. So even in Google, I can see that it's written here with Y, E, and W, while it's written here in O, U, and missing Y, so it's very different writing. So I went to Ringgold to see what's the writing of this university, and I found out that it's a complete different third writing. So it's with an E at the end, but at least I have an organizational identifier, digital one, that I can use in my systems, and which is also pointing out to an ISNI over here. Right. So if I want to identify digitally this organization, I mean, in any system, if I have any system that is really willing to assert any organizational identifier with the metadata dataset, even for a work assertion or a publication or I don't know, preprint, I can use this let's say digital number to link my system or my application to recognize University of Al-Qarawin. Right. So please stop me if there is anything unclear and if you have any question. So it would be great to have this kind of interaction during the presentation. So here, as you can see, this is a LibGuide from University of South Australia, and they are it's quite an old one, but it's pointing out and it's showing the different identifiers that the researcher can use. And you can see here ORCID, Scopus, and researcher ID. So just for also an update, researcher ID is now part of Web of Science, and this is more of the let's say subscription researcher ID, or subscription part of the researcher ID, or how to say it, lucrative part of the researcher ID. So while on the other hand, we have ORCID, which is a free-to-use identifier for the researchers. And I need to update my slide because now we are more than 10 million ORCID IDs. But this is just to show you that now the trend is going to more to ORCID. This is what we are seeing in the region. And even globally. So more and more researchers are trusting ORCID and are using their ORCID ID to basically, we'll see the use cases, but basically do anything in their research career. This is also another question. Why these bits for contributors? Why do we need this ORCID ID at the end? I'm very happy with my name. I don't want to change it, but the reality is that my name is not enough. So systems do not accept, I mean, yeah, there are a lot of systems that do not accept, for example, the writing, the Arabic writing of my name. There are some forms that are not accepting my middle name. So it really depends on the form that is accepting my submission in case of publication, or or funding, or even in case of subscription at a university or at a institutional system of university. And I found this tweet from a professor, I think, or a peer reviewer, saying that, does anybody know who is this WAG from this publication? And this publication is from 1930. So this is really showing two things. The first thing is that this author was unknown from 19, I mean, yeah, on these systems from 1930, which is showing that this problem is very old and very, it's starting from some very old, let's say, processes or architectures or submissions, or some very old methods, let's say. And second thing is that if we don't have any digital reference on this name of this author, we will not know this, the ownership of this work. Right. So the second screenshot is from a publication which is more popular one, where a researcher said to his colleague that he's the 38th author of this article, and the colleague replied, "That's fine, that's good." But then the researcher said again that they are the 38th author called Wang. So this is just to show that even in the name, there is a very strong chances to have this duplication of name and very similarities of names. So bits for contributions. So if you go back again to bits for objects and bits for, let's say, publications and books, we can find that on the digital side, we have the archive ID, and you have the GOI, which is the digital object identifier. On the, let's say, physical side for magazine and books, we have the ISSN, we have the ISBN for books and magazines. And well, you can see here, this is the architecture behind this behind embedding, let's say, these kind of identifiers in a work or in a contribution. So you can see here the metadata description. And then when we move online with this metadata description, when adding this URL, it would be, yeah, the best, in the best case scenarios, it would be great to add this handle service. So handle is the very original, let's say, parameter inspired from or inspiring all these digital object identifiers. So when we embed this identifier, we will have a result of this electronic resources, whether it is audio, visual, or video, including this handle service, which is the pointer, let's say, to find this work or to find this resource. And of course, these are the GUI registration agencies. Crossref is more for journals, publishers. DataSite is more for the academic use of the GUIs. So to follow up with bits for systems and how this is showing the interoperability of systems in general, this is a feedback from a researcher saying that, or wishing that all journals are using ORCID. And this way, with a single ORCID ID, he can connect with different journals and submit in different journals without losing too much time. And this is the auto update functionality where you can see that when I'm using an ORCID ID and I'm publishing at a journal, this journal, if they are registering their GUI with Crossref and DataSite, this auto update functionality will allow the user or me, will allow me to see my publication in like a couple of seconds in my ORCID record. And the same thing if I update this publication or modify it. So sorry for the quality of the image, but yeah, I can, yeah, there is on the web a similar illustration, I think, with a better resolution. So yeah, so I have this slide in Arabic, sorry, but it's showing basically how I'm submitting a preprint via Africa Archive, and because Africa Archive is partnered with Zenodo, and Zenodo is registering their GUIs with DataSite, I can have a GUI in my work, in my preprint, and that is also will be linked to my ORCID record. So basically, when I'm resubmitting, let's say, another version or an update on this work, it will be synchronized with my GUI, and it will be linked again to my ORCID record. So this is regarding what is showing the interoperability between systems, and showing how using this GUI, my work is synchronized between Africa Archive and my ORCID record. Then what are the persistent identifiers, initiatives, and drivers? We can find some of the TOR project, which is the Technical and Human Infrastructure for Open Science, for Open Research project, which is also in collaboration with the Crossref and DataSite to basically contribute to this fairness of data, which is findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. So yeah, and of course, the participation of the European Commission with the Horizon 2020 project. And of course, the I think it's now just closed, the Freya project, which is also aiming to, let's say, develop the same objectives of fairness. The ODIM project is also a pretty old project, but it's participating in building these auto updates and kind of functionalities that are bringing this interoperability to systems and that are, let's say, building the open research infrastructure in general. And as conferences and event, we have PIDAPalooza. So it's next year, it will be, I think, by the third week of January. And next week, it will be, sorry, next year, it will be, next year in January, it will be, so exactly by the 27th of January. It will be free for free for participation. So it's a really good opportunity because usually this is a paid, let's say, event, but this year will be free, so anyone can access and see what's going on in the PID world. Then I think, just to finish with the ORCID presence worldwide, and we will diving more into ORCID in the next presentation. So this is how to get involved with ORCID, but we will see it more in details in the next presentation. Why we don't stop for a couple of minutes and collect some questions?
Yes.
What do you think?
Okay. Thank you, Nabil, for this informative session, and please feel free to ask any question related to this session. Okay, I guess we don't have questions so far, so you can proceed, please, and we will collect questions if we have. We can get them on chat or either directly. Anybody can just ask directly.
All right, great. So for the second presentation, I wanted to also dive in more to what is ORCID, what basically ORCID is doing for institutions, for researchers, and why we do need ORCID in research in general. So as you can see here, ORCID, or maybe the need for ORCID came in from questions like this one. How can I ensure receive credit and recognition for all my contributions? Shouldn't there be a way to reduce time spent on administrative and tasks and reporting requirements in general? How can I maintain and control my record of contributions? So all these questions came in to the community at a point where there was a need to create this free to use identifier for all the researchers to link their contributions and to receive credit and recognition of their contributions from their institutions, from other platforms, from other organizations. And as I said in the other presentation, we are now 10 million ORCID IDs. Unfortunately, we are just 30 employees taking care of all these folks, but we are in our way, let's say, to provide the needed service and needed quality of service for the community. Then what is ORCID? So this is the other part of the definition. ORCID is an open global non-profit organization run and led by the research community. So all what we are doing is inspired by our community of members. Our community is voting for our, let's say, upcoming year's strategies, and they are participating in shaping the future of ORCID. For what ORCID provides in general, so ORCID provides to researchers this unique and persistent free-to-use identifier, which is the ORCID ID, that basically connects them reliably and clearly with their research contributions, affiliations, works, fundings, and other facilities. Now, it's also very important to highlight that ORCID is not an author profile or an authority check system. We do only this check when the user or researcher is losing their access to their ORCID ID. So at that time, we are requesting from them a student card or a passport or any proof that can let them can let them showcase or show that this is they are really the holder of their account. Then ORCID provides some open tools, which are the ORCID ID, the registry, the APIs, that allow transparent connections between researchers and identifiers of their activities and contributions. And we will see this in details in the next couple of slides. This is also the general, let's say, vision and mission of ORCID by providing a persistent digital identifier that the researcher owns and controls, and that distinguishes them from other researchers. The researcher can connect their ID with their professional information, affiliations, grants, publications, peer review, and other activities. And the researcher can use the ORCID ID and share their contributions with other systems, ensuring to get this relevant recognition and contribution, and of course saving them time and hassle in reducing the risk of errors in general. And this is also to show that again the ORCID ID is free for the individual. Now, why ORCID? So again, this is another reason. So the name can change through the career, and as we are moving online, we are throwing our identity here and there. So that this is, I mean, the ORCID ID came out from this need to have this centralized point to get the writings of the names and to get all the contributions in this record or in this reference, because yeah, just to have this ability to be mobile, to move from a profession to another, to move from a country to another, and even after retirement, to have this reference or digital reference for the contribution. This is also a funny, let's say, illustration that I found on PhD Comics. When a researcher is asking another researcher what I should use as name, because it will be my first publications and I want it to be like a very great name. But then the researcher asked if that would increase their impact factor or that would influence anything in the research. And this is showing that yeah, basically the name is not that I mean that linked to the contributions in general, more than having this contribution interoperable and readable by multiple sources. And of course, the different writings of names can be written in an ORCID ID. So so yeah, it can be a good place to reference different writings of our name. Then this is an example of a researcher. So this researcher is having writings, publications, conferences, research. So all these contributions should be in a place for her. So in this example, to solve the case of having multiple papers and all those demonstrations of her contribution to funders, for example, or to promotion committees. But then the best way to have all these information is to have them in one unique place and collected, let's say, and ready to be read by these entities. Then here the circle diagram where you can see the researcher is at the center. It's because of researcher is always under the control of their ORCID ID. And here university can connect and collect information from the researcher. So this information can be affiliation, can be distinguished positions, can be research resources. So it really depends on the workflow of the university and what they want to collect and connect from their affiliates ORCID records. The publisher can do the same, but here it's more, let's say, relevant for publishers to collect information regarding previous publications of this researcher and to connect the actual publications and to push them on the ORCID record of the researchers so that, yeah, this researcher will use them or will just use their ORCID ID to basically share the metadata description regarding their publication that is asserted from this publisher. The funder can do the same as well, but in this case it will be funding or grant IDs and also previous information and previous data regarding this researcher. So a funder can have this information from the ORCID record and assert grant and funding information to the ORCID record as well. Now, this is the schema or the workflow of to let's say resume this interoperability. The researcher is authenticating their ORCID ID whenever they are asked to, and the system that is authenticating ORCID ID will display these IDs and display their ORCID integration and why they are collecting ORCID IDs and authenticating ORCID IDs. But then what they want to do with their integration is really up to their workflow and to their plans. Some are asserting works, some are asserting research resources, some are asserting affiliations. So it really depends on how you want to shape your ORCID IDs of your researchers. But in general, as much information you can assert, as much this ORCID ID will be, let's say, I don't want to say it, but more trustworthy and more reliable, let's say. Then collecting also information from the ORCID record if you want to populate a system. Some institutions do have a central CV system they do have in place, where students are just connecting into the system and creating their CV for for the rest of their career. And this functionality will allow, let's say, to collect these kind of informations to populate these systems. But then the last phase is the synchronization, where all this is done automatically, and the researcher is receiving a notification when this when any action is done on their ORCID record. And the same thing for the institution, they are receiving a notification as soon as the ORCID record is, let's say, updated. And this is the same workflow for funders, employers, and publishers, because we just need to modify here the work type that will be asserted for, yeah, for publishers it will be publications, for funders it will be grants, and for employers affiliations and employment. Here another illustration showing that the visibility control of the researcher is, let's say, the key here, because the university and the funder and the publishers cannot do all these connections for affiliations, grants, or publications without the permission of the researcher. And that the researcher is having also a visibility control under or on those assertions. So I can, for example, put this funding as visible only to me or visible only to trusted parties. So I'm gonna quickly finish with, yeah, so these are kind of banners that we can use if you want to promote ORCID in your institution. This is an assertion from KAUST, from King Abdullah University of Science and Technology. And you can see here that they are having this kind of reporting and analysis on their integration. And we will see more in details with Daryl Grants and Mohammed Baisa, who are our guest speakers today. So I think, I don't know, Daryl, can you hear me and you are ready? Just to know where we are.
Yes, I'm ready.
Great. So my next slide is on the KAUST patch, basically, and Daryl will be taking taking the lead here and presenting his let's say his slides, and then I will be talking about some experience in Africa, and then finishing with the funding and publishing workflows. So I'm gonna stop sharing here, and I have, hello Daryl.
Hello, I'll go ahead and share.
Yes, please go ahead and share your desktop. And also, in the meantime, if you have any question regarding the previous slides, please don't hesitate to put them on the chat box. There, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
So KAUST has been a member of ORCID for about 5 years now, and we've done integration of ORCID with our repository. So I'll just kind of introduce what we've done and the outcomes, and then see what questions you may have. So for those not familiar, we're in Saudi Arabia on the Red Sea coast, and we're a new university founded in 2009. We're also relatively small and focused only on graduate students, PhD and master's students, and focused on a relatively small number of science and technology research areas. One thing that we've seen with our community of researchers and students is that they really fit into this category of migratory researchers, students or researchers coming from other countries to KAUST and then leaving from KAUST to go to other countries and other universities. And ORCID really fits in well into this kind of research landscape to help people manage the history of their research over time and in different countries, at different universities. And so there's a lot to think about when you decide at your institution that you want to use ORCID IDs. I think a lot of things vary across universities, but these are some of the questions to kind of manage. It's important, I think, to understand in your university how people will use ORCID IDs and what the focus will be, whether the focus will be on using them for faculty, for professors to track their publication outputs, or focus on the students to make sure that their theses and dissertations are linked to their ORCID IDs. Where should be basically the initial focus be, and then think what systems do you already have that can be used for this, and for your needs, do you need the ORCID membership? So for us, the library and the repository has led this effort. At other universities, I'm sure it's different. In some cases, IT or a research office may be the focus of the work, but the main thing is to bring people together and to really think about how ORCID IDs can benefit different groups for different workflows, because really it's a pretty powerful thing for the information about a researcher's history to be retrievable based on a simple ID. And there's a lot of different systems in universities that want to have publication lists, want to have employment histories. They want to have this kind of information. And so ORCID can really be plugged into a lot of workflows. One thing to think about is that once you're using ORCID IDs and you're having people authenticate ORCID IDs and you verify the IDs, then you start to put those IDs in systems and share them with other systems. And so the IDs are kind of living out in the wild, a little bit separate from the original connection to the ORCID registry. And so we can have an ORCID ID in a university system, and there could be another system that's pulling information out of that system based on the ORCID ID without having to go through the ORCID registry. And so it's just, there's a lot of different ways to make these connections, not always directly through ORCID, the registry, but based on the ORCID ID. So for us, there's basically the information flow, that's the authentication flow where people identify their ORCID ID to us. Then they have the option to give us the permission to send their affiliation information and their works information into their ORCID record and attach it to their ORCID ID. Then we also use the ORCID ID to pull information back, especially about publications. This little symbol in the corner that's like an S, that's the Crossref symbol, and that's one of those cases where once we have a verified ORCID ID, we can take it and we can send it to Crossref, and we can get back publications, new publications that are linked to that ORCID ID. So as Nabil mentioned, the automatic update workflow from Crossref, and some researchers, they don't enable that. So they publish with their ORCID ID at the publisher site. The publisher registers the DOI with their ORCID ID attached with Crossref, but it doesn't show up in their ORCID record, but we can retrieve it directly from Crossref because of the ORCID ID being in the DOI record. So I'll just talk a little bit about the history of the technical implementation. So we started, I guess many other institutions in our region are also using DSpace. And so there's some, DSpace is a tool that doesn't have yet strong ORCID functionality built into it, but you can, of course, modify it to have that functionality. So we did that first with the DSpace 3 in 2014. Then we built an integration tool that ran as a separate service and then was connected to the DSpace 3 repository. And that's how we launched our membership with ORCID and our basic integration. Then we started working to have ORCID used in related systems, the metrics dashboard from Plumex, and in the faculty annual review process. And then in 2018, we did an upgrade to DSpace 5. And we also began registering DataCite DOIs for theses and dissertations, and also for data sets and software. And the interesting thing there is then we can also include the ORCID IDs in the metadata that we send to DataCite that's connected to the DOIs. And so then last year, we also released the code that we developed along with our service provider Atmire. So the two pieces are a patch that works for DSpace 5 and DSpace 6, and it adds basically the ability to display ORCID IDs, the ability to search by ORCID IDs, and to manage ORCID IDs through the DSpace REST API. And then the second part, the institutional ORCID integration, is a separate application that you would run that actually connects to your university's authentication and has access to your university's employment or education history information, and manages the permissions for people sending information from your system into ORCID. So this is what it would look like now in our DSpace if you looked at an example of a dissertation. One thing that we've done is that we connect the ORCID IDs not just to the authors, but also to the other people who have a role in that dissertation. So the advisor, the committee members. And so then within our system, you can search a faculty member by their ORCID ID, and you would see all of their publications where they are an author, but also all of the dissertations where they are an advisor or a committee member, and then you can filter down and see exactly what you want to see. For example, if you just want to see where they are an advisor. In the ORCID record, this was what it would look like after a student had a dissertation and connected to our tool, connected their ORCID record to our tool and gave us the permissions. They would have an affiliation entry that says the source is the CAUST repository, and then also a work entry for their dissertation. An important part of using ORCID is to introduce it to people. Students, even graduate students, tend not to be that familiar with ORCID, but postdocs and faculty, people who have started publishing, probably already have ORCID IDs, but they also may not understand actually how it's working or the different ways it can be used. So it's important to have someone available to help them figure out how it's working and to feel confident that it's working the way it should be. For students, we encourage them just to use their ORCID ID. Also for other types of outputs like posters or presentations, gray literature, unpublished outputs. If they're putting them in the repository, then they can be connected to their ORCID ID and appear in their ORCID record. For postdocs, one thing I've had people be interested in is adding their dissertation from their old university, or also other types of outputs. If they have been using a repository at another university and that repository is harvested into the Bielefeld academic search engine, the base search engine, they can go to that search engine and claim those outputs and have them appear in their ORCID record. So normally when someone starts using ORCID, they want to go and bring in their publication history if they have it, like from Scopus or Crossref. But for these other types of items that maybe are not in those types of databases, if they're in repositories and the repository is harvested into BASE, then there's a good chance they can claim their history through that tool. This is just talking about the auto update feature. What we found is that there's still quite a few people, they give their ORCID ID to the publisher, but then when they get the email that says, oh, grant permission for Crossref to update your ORCID record, they're not granting that permission. So we try to educate people to understand what Crossref is and how this is one of the kind of key features of ORCID that they should take advantage of. This is kind of the activity over time of people using our tool. So it's mostly used by students and postdocs. And not too much to say about that. And this is just kind of the numbers as far as the level of activity using our tool. Okay, I'll hand it back to Nabil, or if you have other questions, I can try to help to answer them.
Yeah, thank you very much, Daryl. And yeah, I think that you can take a couple of questions on this. So what do you think, Raid?
Yes, for sure. If there are questions, please.
All right, so I think it was very clear. So thank you very much, Daryl.
Thank you, Daryl.
You're welcome.
I'm gonna share back my desktop. And yeah, so I was in ORCID in funding and publishing. So just to have an idea on the relationship of ORCID with funders and publishers in general. So there are a lot of publishers that are adopting ORCID in their policies, and they are even integrating ORCID in their systems. So as you can see here, this is the list of the funders working group. And as you can see here, there are some of the funders from Egypt, from South Africa, from everywhere in the world. And it would be great to see more and more funders from the regions, let's say from the Middle East and Africa region, joining this group of funders in mandating ORCID as a unique identifier for the grant submitters and the grant applicants. Then how ORCID is helping in funding workflows. So ORCID is, when implementing ORCID, it reduces, let's say, high reporting burdens. So the information from the ORCID record can be used to fill form and to track research results, over time. This is by implementing ORCID in funding workflows. The funders are also facing some low data quality and authoritative information about funding to ORCID records. So by adding this authoritative information about the researchers and the research activities and previous funding from this researcher, it contributes to enhance this data quality, and it contributes to having a reliable and trustworthy data within the funding system in general. Now, to face also low information sharing, so there are a lot of systems and a lot of funding systems that are not, let's say, connected to other platforms and other systems to basically retrieve this information or to share the information, out of this system. So ORCID contributes as well to having this connection or this interoperability of the funders system. So this is in general how ORCID is helping in funding. And there is the ORBIT funding group and, ORBIT working group. And you can have a look on the reporting that came out of this working group and some kind of surveys that are helping this, let's say, funders in making decisions of adopting, let's say, persistent identifiers. Then PIDs and persistent identifiers in general in funding. So when the researcher is having an ORCID ID and registers using their ORCID ID, and adding to this the ROR, which is the an example of an organizational identifier. It helps also this funder to import career or CV data from the ORCID record. It helps also to link the funder registers to grant or DOI, like here, Crossref, like Daryl shared, or or DataSite, and of course connects awards data to the ORCID record. So all these are linked, and all these are structuring, let's say, the solution to funders, and leading to benefits, to these different benefits, like better data quality, like saving time in administrative efforts and administrative tasks, like promoting this interoperability between systems, like providing this transparent and authoritative connection between funders and researchers. So all this structure is leading to these benefits and helping, let's say, funders in adopting this kind of, let's say, infrastructure. So how to push for this, how to help accomplishing this. The NRF South Africa, for example, released this statement, I think in 2017, mandating all researchers to use their ORCID ID, especially when they are submitting for the NRF grants and for the NRF funds. On the right side, we have this letter from YOC that was distributed to all the institutions in Turkey, and that are also encouraging and pushing for the use of ORCID starting from a certain date, and that all researchers and students should have their ORCID ID. Here, so on the left side, we can see the NRF system and NRF submission system. And you can see that the ORCID ID is linked here, not manually entered. On the right side, we can see the African Academy of Science system, and you can see here as well that the ORCID ID is linked to the profile or the researcher or user profile. Now, here's the architecture of the NRF CVC system. It's based on OAuth authentication, and it gets information from the ORCID record while doing this authentication, so that ORCID IDs are authenticated before proceeding to next steps of the submission. Here's an example of publishing. So we can see that the connection ORCID OJS is working perfectly. You can assert publications and retrieve information using the OJS plugin. So as you can see here, this is the a publication or journal article assertion from the OJS instance. And OJS is the open journal system, an open access system that is distributed by Public Knowledge Project, PKP. This is the membership category. So this is regarding institutions. If you want to implement ORCID in your institution, it's better to have an idea on these 3 different type of access. And to notice that the premium access is having 4 extra accesses comparing to the basic membership. And of course, some kind of other, let's say, advantages that you can explore if you go to ORCID membership page, which is also including the membership fees publicly shared. These are also a couple of other resources, including the link to the DSpace CAUST patch and link to the ORCID open source codes and different outreach resources on how to create an ORCID ID, basically how to plan your integration, some use cases, everything about APIs, so that you can consult from our website. This is also an example of poster that you can distribute even digitally or at the university to have some answers around ORCID for, let's say, the new users or for researchers that are asking, why do I need this identifier? And thank you very much for your attention. And now I hope that you have some questions. So let's see.
Thank you very much, Nabil, for this valuable information, for the sessions, and for the thank you, Daryl, for giving a highlight on CAUST ORCID adopting. And please feel free if anybody have questions, please. It seems all was clear and hopefully interesting for all. Maybe Amira is writing something. Okay.
Yeah, so if there is any question, happy to have any question offline. So
I actually have a question, Roberto
Yes.
Barbero from the University of Catania, Italy. Are there plans to connect ORCID IDs with RORs, with the unique identity, with the persistent identifier for organizations? Because as of today, you can put many affiliation in your ORCID profile, but with different, with different names. Is there a way of adding, or there are plans to add RORs IDs to ORCID IDs?
Yes, so now the ORCID registry is connected with grid IDs. So all the metadata that are already connected with grid IDs or with grid IDs and also ROR IDs will be available on the ORCID registry. But we are working on connecting directly the ROR and introducing this ROR identifier to the registry so that you can use it in general. I think that there are some use cases with this error. So if you want, we can, I can get in touch with you and share with you some use cases.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
There's a question from Amira in the chat. She is asking if we can put more than one affiliation.
Yes, yeah. So it really depends on the institutions that are asserting these affiliations. So I can be, for example, working in a project with the laboratory in institution X, and I can be also affiliated with another university. But I want to see both assertions and both affiliations in my ORCID record. So there's no, challenge in asserting both affiliations. So the first research center or the research laboratory can assert this information into my ORCID record, and same thing for the university, they can assert my affiliation in the same ORCID ID.
Hope that answers Amira's question. If you have other questions, please. Well, if we don't have further questions, as Nabil mentioned, please feel free to approach him directly through email, and I'm sure he will be so helpful anytime. And by this, we come to a conclusion of the last session of the last workshop for today, and the last of the EAGE conference activities for this year. I would like to thank you all for being with us for this workshop and for the other EAGE activities. Thank you all so much.
Thank you very much, everyone, for attending.
For Amira, she was asking about sharing the presentation. I guess the recording will be shared. I'm not sure if the slides as will be shared. Our colleagues in ASREN will take care about sharing the all activities, including this workshop. Thank you all again one more time, and have a nice day.
Thank you very much.
And now we will share the presentation on the ASREN website.
Thank you.